I still vividly remembered the days I spent in that terrifying apartment complex. It haunted me for a long time. That year, I had just been accepted into university and moved into an old apartment building near the campus. I was prone to allergies, so I often applied baby powder to my skin to relieve the itching. However, because I was clumsy, I accidentally spilled the powder on the floor, creating a thin layer of white dust. It was already late, so I hurried out without cleaning it up. When I returned, I was stunned to see smudged footprints clearly imprinted all over the powder-covered floor. Worried, I called the building manager to report what had happened. Hello? I suspect someone broke into my apartment while I was away. Could you please check the security cameras for me?
Ask the security guard tomorrow. It's too late now.
He hung up right after that, but the uneasiness still lingered inside me. I got up and walked around the house, checking every corner to see if anything was missing. As I stepped out onto the balcony, a cat suddenly lunged at me and clawed my face. I screamed and stumbled back, a burning pain spreading across my skin. The cat growled, then leapt onto the neighboring balcony and vanished into the darkness. I clutched my chest, breathing heavily, telling myself it was probably just the neighbor's mischievous cat. That night, as I was sleeping, I heard someone calling my name.
Who allowed you to sleep here? Get up.
I jolted awake, only to find myself lying in the middle of a graveyard. In front of me stood a thin man with a furious expression, staring straight at me. In his hand, he held a sickle, ready to strike at any moment. Who are you? Why am I here?
This is my home. Who gave you permission to lie here?
As soon as he finished speaking, he raised the sickle and charged at me in a frenzy. I was so frightened that I turned to run, but tripped over a rock and fell to the ground. Before I could get up, the man was already upon me, the sickle raised high above my head. I screamed in panic and suddenly woke up in my familiar room. Still shaken, I immediately called my best friend. She arrived not long after, and I trembled as I told her everything that had happened. To help me uncover the truth, she poured an entire box of baby powder all over the room. Then she suggested I sleep in her room and said we'd come back to check in the morning. The next day, when we opened the door, I nearly fainted. Footprints were everywhere, children's footprints, adult footprints in all different sizes. But what chilled me to the bone was that the prints crawled up the walls and even onto the ceiling. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my things and moved out that very day. A few weeks later, while eating near that apartment complex, I saw a crowd of people running out of the building in a panic. What's going on with that apartment complex across the street?
I heard the building owner dug up someone's grave to build that place without permission. People are furious and came to tear it down.
Really? I just moved out of there because of some strange happenings.
A lot of people left after being scared off. No one dares to stay there anymore.
I felt the blood in my veins turn to ice, a chill running down my spine. Since then, I never dared to go near that apartment building again. I'm Jane, a 22-year-old new tourism graduate. I am someone who is passionate about exploring new things, places where no one has ever set foot. Today, after just finishing work, I saw a newly opened coffee shop right under the company gate. The story I am about to tell may be an experience I will never forget in my entire life. My family has been in the traditional medicine business for a long time. When I was young, I often followed my father up the mountain behind our house to find precious medicinal herbs to sell. I still remember once my father told me that on the top of that mountain, there was an abandoned house. The house once had a person who committed suicide, and since then, that person's soul has haunted the place, never leaving. On a weekend, when I returned to my hometown to visit my family, I happened to run into Max, my middle school classmate. Max is a gentle, kind-hearted boy, and my family holds him in high regard. While we were reminiscing about old memories, Max suddenly mentioned the abandoned house. He said that the other day a hiker happened to pass by that house and saw the shadow of a woman. There's no way that's true! I don't believe it!
Many people in this village say that you haven't been back to the hometown for a long time, so you wouldn't know.
So, shall we go there tonight to watch?
No way, James. It's really scary.
It's okay. Trust me. After much persuasion, Max finally agreed to go there with me. We walked together along the path leading up the mountain. The path up there isn't too difficult, but it's quite far, so it took us about an hour to reach that house. I stood below looking up at the two-story house, an untouched house covered in green moss, with overgrown grass in the front yard. I was about to step into the house when Max said,
I think we should go back, James. I'm scared.
"We've spent so much time getting here, there's no way we can just turn back easily. Come in with me." Max and I stepped into the house and looked around. The objects inside were old and scattered everywhere. I wondered why the owner of this house built it in such a desolate place. Max pulled my hand and pointed at the picture of a woman hanging on the wall. Her eyes appeared to be observing everything we did. I don't see anything scary, it's just a normal picture. Suddenly Max asked me,
James, do you hear anything?
"It seems I heard footsteps on the second floor." We went up to the second floor. The footsteps became clearer, seemingly coming from the last room in the hallway, as if someone was walking around in that room. I slowly walked up to the door of the room, and as I stood in front of the door, the footsteps suddenly disappeared. I tried to open the door but couldn't. It felt like someone was locking it from the inside. "Is anyone in there?" In response, all I heard was the wind outside the forest. Suddenly, the door slowly creaked open, and Max and I turned to look. I started to feel anxious and recalled the stories I had heard about this house. It was as if something compelled me to approach the door, and just as I raised my hand, a gust of wind blew, flinging the door wide open. I saw Max passed out lying in the hallway. I ran over and tried to wake him up. "Max, what's wrong? Wake up!" Looking back at the dark room, only the moonlight filtering through the window created an ethereal glow. I saw the silhouette of a woman standing by the window watching us. That was the woman in the photo in the living room, her gaze looking at me as if she were very angry. I heard her voice say to me,
Who allowed you to come in here?
I felt my whole body freeze, unable to move.
You shouldn't come here. This is my home.
The woman's voice growled. At this point, the whole house seemed to be enveloped in a chilly atmosphere, and the sound of the terrified wind howling outside was audible. The woman slowly approached us, her face pale and looking at us with anger. I felt a chill run down my spine. A thought echoed in my head. "I have to leave here immediately." "Max, wake up! We have to leave here!" Max still lay motionless. In a panic, I pulled Max up, carried him on my back, and rushed out of the house. I ran straight ahead without daring to look back. My legs felt like they had no strength left, but fear wouldn't let me stop. I kept running through the forest until I saw the lights of the houses in the village. Even though 2 weeks have passed, the feeling of fear in my heart has not yet faded. The story about that house and the woman will probably become one of the most terrifying memories of my life. After this story, I advise you not to visit abandoned houses out of curiosity because you will never know what awaits you there.
I am John, 28 years old. I used to work at a small company, but due to structural changes, I had to find a new environment with better growth opportunities. However, not long after starting, I realized that the workload here was heavier than I had imagined. The overwhelming tasks often forced me to stay late into the night. Many nights, I would see a thin woman diligently mopping the hallway floor, but when I looked at my phone, the clock had already 0, and I wondered, was there still a cleaner working at this hour? Many times, I wanted to greet her, but every time I stepped out the door, she had vanished, as if she had never been there. She moved like a shadow, just a blink, and she disappeared, making it impossible to determine where she had gone. Again and again, the sight kept repeating itself. I couldn't help but wonder, something was not right, or worse, something did not belong to this world. Curious, I decided to observe her more closely. When I stepped into the hallway, she was still there, bending down and carefully scrubbing each stain on the floor. I smiled and said,
Good evening, ma'am. Do I crawl to Rigo? You're working late, aren't you?
She did not respond. She just silently wiped the glass, each stroke slow and deliberate, as if following an unconscious habit. I hesitated for a moment before continuing.
Have you worked here long? I just started, so I don't know many people yet.
She paused for a moment, tilting her head slightly backward, preventing me from seeing her face clearly. I took another step forward, and suddenly, the overhead lights flickered continuously. When the lights stabilized, she was gone. The hallway ahead of me was eerily silent. No trace, no sound, as if no one had ever stood there. A chill ran down my spine, but I forced myself to shake off the strange feeling. I quietly returned to work, though my mind kept replaying the question, where did she go? A while later, as I was absorbed in my work, I suddenly heard the sound of a cloth rubbing against glass. Out of reflex, I looked up, and my heart almost stopped when I saw the woman standing outside, silently cleaning, with a vacant expression. Suddenly, she stopped and stared straight at me, her pale face pressed against the glass, so close that I could see every faint blue vein beneath her tight, lifeless skin. I shivered, rubbed my eyes, and when I looked again, she was gone. Only a faint, wet handprint remained smudged on the glass. A cold chill spread through my entire body. Panicking, I hurriedly packed my things and rushed out. I ran toward the elevator, frantically pressing the button, my heart pounding. The elevator doors slid open, and I froze. Inside stood the same woman. Feeling uneasy, I hesitated before stepping in. Forcing a smile, I said,
Are you working the night shift, ma'am?
I tried to start a conversation, but she remained silent. Only then did I notice her appearance more closely. She was frail, her complexion sickly pale, as if she had no life left in her. Suddenly, the elevator shook violently. The lights flickered rapidly, and then went out completely. He spoke very slowly. Panic surged through me as I quickly pulled out my phone to use as a flashlight. But the screen glitched, and then shut off. Out of nowhere, a cold, bony hand rested on my shoulder. I felt my flesh freeze at the touch. Slowly, I turned my head, each movement heavy and trembling. Before me, the woman's face emerged, deathly pale, with sunken, hollow eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. I screamed, trying to back away, but my back was already pressed against the freezing elevator wall. An overwhelming terror gripped me as she inched closer, her empty eyes staring deep into mine. Paralyzed by fear, I collapsed to the floor, hugging my knees, trembling uncontrollably. Just when I thought all hope was lost, the elevator doors suddenly opened, and a flashlight beam shone directly at me. A concerned male voice called out,
Hey, are you okay?
I looked up to see the building's security guard staring at me with worried eyes. I scrambled out of the elevator, collapsing onto the floor, my heart pounding wildly. Shaking, I asked him,
Did you see a cleaning lady here just now?
The security guard looked at me, puzzled.
Everyone has gone home already. It's just you here.
Horrified by his words, my heart pounded in my chest. Then, who was the woman in the elevator? The next morning, I recounted everything to a coworker. Fearfully, I said,
Last night I saw a cleaning lady outside our office.
After hearing my description of her appearance, my colleague immediately looked shocked. He whispered,
She used to be a janitor at the company. 2 months ago, she had a stroke and died right in that elevator.
Stunned by the horrifying truth, I never dared to work overtime alone in the office again. But one time, as I stepped into the elevator alone, I was stunned when I saw the reflection of the light on the glass door. Reflected in the metal doors, I saw a pale face with a distorted, eerie smile, staring right at me. My best friend and I are going to a live show at a local bar tonight. The opening act is Julia Rose, an indie artist I love. Damn, it's already 7:10 p.m., only 20 minutes left until the show starts, and my friend is still nowhere. He promised to pick me up at 7.
Outside, I'm coming.
Here am I.
I hung up, grabbed my jacket, and rushed out the door.
Sorry, traffic was a nightmare.
We're gonna be late. Hurry up, or we won't get a good spot.
Max, unfazed, said,
Trust me.
The bar was packed tonight. We weaved our way through the crowd, searching for a spot. The music started playing. Julia Rose was on stage, and I was completely captivated by her sweet, enchanting voice. The atmosphere was incredible. People swayed to the music. Colorful lights reflected off shimmering cocktails. After a while, I reached into my pocket to check my phone, but it wasn't there. My heart skipped a beat. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I searched my jacket, my jeans. Nothing. A wave of unease crept over me. I quickly glanced around. I asked a staff member if he had found a phone. He shook his head. I ran to the restroom, pushing open every stall door. Nothing.
Hey, get over here. What's going on?
Out of options, I borrowed Max's phone and dialed my number. The call rang twice. I held onto a sliver of hope. Maybe someone would pick it up and return it. But when the call connected, instead of a voice, I heard a strange, low and eerie bip. The call was cut off. I tried calling again. This time, no one answered. The ringing continued until it stopped on its own. I kept trying, but it was the same every time. The unease inside me turned into a deep, creeping dread. Someone had my phone, and they had no intention of giving it back. After multiple failed attempts, I finally gave up and went home, feeling restless and uneasy. It was late. The streets were eerily empty. As soon as I stepped into my bedroom, ready to collapse onto my bed, I froze. My phone was sitting neatly on my bedside table. That's impossible. Besides me, there'd be someone else in this room.